Trump has said 7 times that he will mediate between India and Pakistan, not just once. He has called them both great nations. He has said they are both equal friends of his. They will come to the table and negotiate under his allegedly benign supervision. Now, Trump is, we know, whimsical, erratic, vain. Nonetheless, he is the president of the most powerful and the richest country in the world, with which India very much desires good relations. Now, in the last decade, clearly, we have been less than robust, less than committed in our upholding of democratic procedure. We still hold elections, but the election commission generally schedules them when the ruling party wants. The media is totally compromised. The regulatory and investigative agencies are utterly partisan. So are governors in opposition ruled states, undermining our federal structure. So our democratic credibility has been eroded.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. In an article that is written today for the Calcutta paper, The Telegraph, my guest believes that India is in danger of becoming re-hyphenated with Pakistan, and this is mainly because it's regressed and moved away from its founding principles. Those are serious concerns that deserve to be discussed and better understood. Joining me now to explain his thinking and his fears is the well-known historian of modern India, the author of multiple books, and a widely read public commentator, Ramachandra Guha. Ram Guha, in the article you've written today for the Calcutta paper, The Telegraph, you argue that India is in danger of becoming re-hyphenated with Pakistan because it has regressed and moved away from its founding principles. That's the subject I want to discuss with you. First, let's start with why you believe India is in danger of being re-hyphenated. In the first instance, it's to do with Donald Trump's comments and tweets. Can you explain?
Yes, Karan, to explain how Donald Trump's comments and tweets are a substantial departure from how past American presidents have viewed us, one needs a little bit of history. So during the Cold War, and particularly during around the time of the 65 and 71 conflicts between India and Pakistan, there was a kind of India and Pakistan weren't seen as very different because they were fighting with Kashmir. The Americans were supporting Pakistan energetically. We were kind of non-aligned, but slightly more to the Soviet side. But from the early 90s, it became clear that India was indeed different from Pakistan in several respects. One, that although they were an Islamic republic, we were not a Hindu state. Second, we held regular elections, whereas their elections were decided by generals. We held general elections, their elections were decided by generals. And third, from the 90s, we started growing economically quite substantially. And in 1998, you will recall, President Clinton came here. And he spent 5 days in India and 5 hours in Pakistan, which was a starkly visible sign that India and Pakistan being de-hyphenated, and India was being regarded as much more important economically, politically, and indeed morally by the most powerful country in the world. Now move to the presidents after Clinton, Bush and Obama. You know, not only did the relationship between India and America grow substantially, economically and politically, you will recall the extraordinary praise that Bush and Obama leveled, particularly Obama, but also Bush on Dr. Manmohan Singh as a sage among statesmen and so on. So there was a radical dehyphenation, and now there was some talk, possibly premature talk, but certainly some talk of there being India instead being hyphenated with China. Now, this is a radical departure in that context. Now, this morning, Karan, I read a report after my article was sent to the press in the PTI, an Indian news agency, which said Trump has said 7 times that he will mediate between India and Pakistan, not just once. He has called them both great nations. He has said they are both equal friends of his. They will come to the table and negotiate under his allegedly benign supervision. Now, Trump is, we know, whimsical, erratic, vain. Nonetheless, he is the president of the most powerful and the richest country in the world, with which India very much desires good relations. And hence, even obviously, in our eyes, we should not be hyphenated with Pakistan. We are still a democracy. We are growing. Our economy is 11 times that of Pakistan. Our per capita income is twice that of Pakistan. At least where I live in South India, it may be slightly different in North and West India. Minorities are relatively safe. So it may irk us to be hyphenated. But why is it that the most powerful man in the world, who runs a country with which India has had such good relations over the last 3 decades, and for its own economic and geostrategic interests, it requires India to maintain and deepen those relationships. Why is this happening? So we should introspect and ask ourselves.
Let me ask you this. Are you confident that this is not just the quirky, idiosyncratic, eccentric nature of Trump? Or is it in fact a conscious attempt to see India and Pakistan as equivalent entities?
Well, one does not know with Trump, but the fact that the US had to mediate and, repeatedly claimed it has, Vance and Rubio too, they also said that Kashmir will be discussed, in a neutral venue. This is a clear violation of similar agreement. But more than that, Karan, in my article, I also talk about the Financial Times, which is arguably the most respected Western paper in the world, generally quite sympathetic to India. And the Financial Times, this hugely respected international paper, ran a big story before the ceasefire, but when the guns were blazing on either side between India and Pakistan. And it called it, I quote, the headline was, "Two religious strongmen clash." Who were these two religious strongmen? On the one side, General Asim Munir, the head of the Pakistani army, presented as a devout Muslim who aggressively represents his country's interests. And the other, Narendra Modi, represented as a devout Hindu who acts similarly on behalf of his country. So, and then there was another article, which I also refer to in my column, by the very well-known and widely regarded international relations historian Timothy Garton-Ash, where he says of Narendra Modi, he speaks of Narendra Modi's obsessive enmity towards Chinese-backed Pakistan. Now, give me a couple of minutes, Karan, to explain how these representations and characterizations of Mr. Modi and India are so different from what not just the Financial Times, but the New York Times, The Economist, CNN, even Spanish newspapers would have resorted to in the past. Would anyone have called Manmohan Singh, Rajiv Gandhi, Deve Gowda, Narasimha Rao, or even Atal Bihari Vajpayee a religious strongman? No. Would any of them talk of their aggressive enmity towards Pakistan? I think that's what defines them. Now, and I was reflecting on this, and particularly the religious strongman part, if you give me just 1 minute, to suggest that Narendra Modi, particularly since 2019, has earned himself the sobriquet religious strongman. The fact that he religiously presided over the inauguration of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya as Prime Minister, sent a sign that he believed India was a Hindu Rashtra. That he has been repeatedly portrayed by his fan club, supported by his party and his government in military uniform. I live in Bangalore, which is not ruled by the BJP, but friends of mine in BJP ruled states tell me After the Pahalgam attack and even before the conflict started, there were posters everywhere of Modi in military uniform looming large and the armed forces rather small in the background. Our proud and hugely capable armed forces. So he has presented himself as a religious strongman. And clearly, the larger ecosystem, the social media ecosystem of the BJP, is not really concerned so much with India's economic or political rise as what the Financial Times characterizes as a obsessive enmity with Pakistan. So these things should really give us pause.
So you're saying two very important things, aren't you? And I'll quickly sum them up for the audience. Not only is it Donald Trump in his tweets and his comments that is re-hyphenating India with Pakistan, but leading intellectuals like Professor Timothy Garton-Ash or leading Western newspapers like the Financial Times are also in their coverage of India and Pakistan hyphenating the two. There, the hyphen tends to be in terms of religious obsession. But whether it's the media, whether it's intellectuals, or whether it's Donald Trump, that re-hyphenation is happening. That's the point you're making, isn't it?
It's starting, and that should worry us. One should act quickly so that it does not proceed, it does not become commonplace, and not just the world, but India itself begins to recognize what economically, politically, culturally, and morally has separated us from Pakistan and should continue to separate us from Pakistan. So the fight is beginning. Now, people will say it's only a few isolated incidents, but these are people of some significance. The most powerful and most important leader in the democratic world, Donald Trump, the most influential business newspaper in the world, the Financial Times. So we should start thinking and act so that we nip this attempt, we at least self-correct so that this hyphenation is no longer possible in the future.
Let's at this point, Ram, come to the second part of your argument. You believe this potential re-hyphenation is happening because India has regressed in the past decade. So let me start by asking you, what do you mean by regressed? And can you give me some examples of this regression?
So essentially, we chose a different path from Pakistan politically and constitutionally. So we positioned ourselves as a democracy which held regular, free and fair elections, and in which institutions like the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the press, regulatory agencies were independent and autonomous. And the second reason we were very different was we gloried in our religious and linguistic diversity. Whereas Pakistan was not just one religion, but one language, which is why Bangladesh separated from Pakistan, because the West Pakistanis imposed Urdu on East Pakistan. Now, in the last decade, clearly, we have been less than robust, less than committed in our upholding of democratic procedure. We still hold elections, but the election commission generally schedules them when the ruling party wants. The media is totally compromised. The regulatory and investigative agencies are utterly partisan. So are governors in opposition ruled states, undermining our federal structure. So our democratic credibility has been eroded in multiple ways. I could give other examples. And even more disturbing me, in my view, because I am a passionate believer in secularism, pluralism, and also linguistic diversity, is been this attempt to impose a kind of Hindu naturalness to how Indians should think, to make us believe that we are essentially a Hindu state in which others who are not Hindus live at our mercy. And again, there are multiple examples. There's the press, there's the stigmatization, there's the lynchings. There's even, as I say in my article, the symbolic value of having a very brave and exemplary Muslim female officer as one of our spokespersons was quickly dissipated by one minister in Madhya Pradesh, in insinuating that we chose her because she was the sister of a terrorist, whatever that might mean. After that, he belatedly apologized, but the government has not acted against him. The BJP has not acted against him. Not only that, to compound matters, the Deputy Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh yesterday said that the Indian army has prostrated itself before Narendra Modi. So, the Pakistani army can prostrate itself before General Modi. But what does this say about us if a senior BJP leader is claiming this? So our democratic and pluralistic credentials have been eroded over the last decade, and that's quite starkly visible to a non-partisan observer. So we should not simply keep on parroting the claims, we are the mother of democracy, we are a entirely secular and plural society, when the fact is we are less plural, less secular, and less democratic than we were a decade ago.
In fact, you sum this up when you point out that there has been a steady rise of authoritarianism and majoritarianism in India. That is a comparison with Pakistan because it suggests that we are increasingly and steadily becoming like Pakistan.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll add one caveat, Karan. I'm a historian. So I tend to look at things in the long picture. I also don't live in Delhi. I live in South India, and I travel all across our country. So I have a sense of the country as a whole. As a historian, I would say that this democratic erosion began with Indira Gandhi in the emergency. It was corrected after the emergency when there was a renewal of pluralism, democracy, federalism, the autonomy of institutions like the judiciary, the media, they thrived. And then Modi came and took us back to Indira Gandhi's era and even more. So, in an earlier program with you a couple of years ago, I think, I characterized him as Indira Gandhi on steroids. So I think this did not begin. The erosion of our democratic institutions began in the 60s and 70s with the Congress under Indira Gandhi. It was revived afterwards, partly because we had coalition governments from the early 90s. And now, Modi has kind of brought back this kind of authoritarian tendency with a majoritarian tinge. The second thing I'd say, and I think this is very, very important to understand, to give nuance and complexity to our understanding of what is happening to India. It's also true that in several of our states run by opposition chief ministers, democratic institutions have eroded. There is a colossal personality cult of Narendra Modi that operates at the national level. But they are also dangerous personality cults operating at the provincial level of people like Stalin, Vijayan, Mamata Banerjee, and so on. So it's not only a BJP. Let not this be seen as a defense of, it certainly should be seen as a chastisement of the BJP under Modi. But this is not a defense of the Congress or of regional parties, so in their own ways, maybe in less significant ways, but nonetheless have contributed to the erosion of our democratic and plural ethos.
But you do agree that the more we begin to look and appear like a Hindu Pakistan, the further we are moving from our founding principles and the more we are likely to be regressing in terms of the country we promised the world we would be.
Yes, but my worry is not that we are looking more like Pakistan. My worry is we are looking less like India, the India of our constitutional imagination. I would put it that way. We should uphold and be true to our best and finest values, which in the decades prior to the current conjuncture have sustained our democracy, nurtured our pluralism, cultivated intellectual open-mindedness and curiosity about the world, and led to substantial economic growth. So we are becoming less like India. But we are becoming more like Pakistan, we are becoming less like India.
Absolutely. And the more we become less like India, the more we regress and the more the world sees India and Pakistan as hyphenated, similar, equivalent countries.
Yes, and again, let me give a larger context so that it's not just India and Pakistan or not just the BJP. Karan, the fusion of authoritarianism and majoritarianism is not restricted to Pakistan. Is there in Myanmar and Sri Lanka with Buddhist majoritarianism. Pakistan is Sunni majoritarianism, but Iran is a Shia theocratic state. So if Indians look around and see how Iran, which had a extremely articulate intelligentsia, which had promoted gender equality in the 50s and 60s, which had a scientific infrastructure, which had massive natural resources, collapsed after it became theocratic, or Sri Lanka, which was a vibrant island society with very good indicators in health, education, and so on. Once the Buddhist fundamentalists took over, how it got entrapped in civil war and lost its way economically and socially. And Burma, which is also Buddhist, may be the worst of all. So there's a broader lesson for Indians to learn. Whenever religion becomes fused with the running of the state, that's bad for the country, economically, socially, morally, politically. Not just in Pakistan, but also in Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Iran, Turkey, and countless other examples.
All right. I think we've clearly established for the audience two things that were essential to establish at the outset of this interview. Firstly, why you believe there is a danger that we are becoming re-hyphenated with Pakistan and what you believe are the reasons for that. And secondly, what you believe are the reasons for that rehyphenation happening, i.e., the regression that you've spoken about, the fact that we are becoming increasingly less and less like India. We're becoming not necessarily more like Pakistan, but we are ceasing to be the country we promised the world we would be.
And
Now,
we promised ourselves we'd be.
absolutely. Now, at the moment, and you know this as well as I do, any suggestion of hyphenation makes the Modi government bristle.
Yeah.
But that display of rhetorical outrage is insufficient and inadequate because it doesn't tackle the key problem that causes the hyphenation, i.e., the regression. Would you agree that that outrage doesn't tackle the problem? It's simply an expression
Yes.
of anger and frustration.
Yes.
The real
But
problem is tackling
absolutely.
the regression.
Absolutely. But my column, which incidentally is also published in 11 other Indian languages, is addressed not to the Modi government. It's not addressed to the Congress party or to the India Alliance. It's addressed to my fellow citizens. It's addressed to the people of India who care about how India is perceived outside and inside, and who it seeks to make them understand the dangers of following the path of authoritarianism and majoritarianism. So it's not really a critique of the Modi government as a wake-up call to my fellow Indians. That's how I would see it.
Absolutely. But tell me, how should we then, we the people of India, how should we respond to the regression, which is the cause of the hyphenation that looms on the horizon? How should we as a people respond?
So, well, one reason could be to look at parts of India that have not completely succumbed. Now, I have been spending in the last few years a lot of time in the state of Tamil Nadu. Now, Tamil Nadu has authoritarian tendencies because Stalin is a kind of a cult figure. But on the other hand, it has very good human indicators, it has solid economic process, and most important, in my wide experience of traveling in all the states in India, Tamil Nadu is the one state where Muslims and Christians feel completely secure and equal and first-class citizens with anyone else. Kerala too, and Karnataka too, but a little less so. Likewise in the Northeast, there may be areas in which this whole idea of India as a Hindu Rashtra has not penetrated. Punjab certainly, So where religious and linguistic, there are pockets in India which are not insubstantial. They're less visible in the Hindi heartland and wherever the BJP is in power, including Gujarat. But they are substantial pockets of India where the social ethos, the cultural behavior, civil society, and even the political climate is congenial to the nurturing of pluralism, both linguistic and religious. So there are parts of India we can learn from. Sadly, there are few parts of India where democracy is reviving, where you have a really vigorous autonomous press, maybe in some areas of the digital space, and brave independent YouTubers. By the way, again, something I should mention in my article, a heroic role in the armed conflict with Pakistan was played by Mohammad Zubair, who debunked fake news for weeks, and he was celebrated by Indians. But once the conflict ended, people started remembering he was a Muslim, and death threats were uttered against him. So I think we should really think of ways in the past and in the present where we have lived up to our finest values and learn from them, nurture them, deepen them. And clearly the media has a very important role here. Maybe we'll talk about the media later, but I wanted to say that the Delhi-based media has played a pernicious role, not just during this conflict, Karan, but over the last decade in making Muslims a hate figure and vilifying them. If the last week, people have noticed their jingoism and their warmongering, but over the last decade, they have deeply polarized Indian society on religious lines. And as one wit put it, the so-called national media, which is in Noida in Uttar Pradesh, not really in Delhi, should be renamed Lashkar-e-Noida. Lashkar-e-Noida. I think that kind of, that captures their poisonous, bigoted worldview very much. And if they represent the mainstream media, God help us.
You're making a very important point. A lot of the regression that lies underneath the hyphenation is because of the way the media behaves, the way the media covers stories, the way the media polarizes the country. But what about social media? Is that also not responsible?
Yes, of course. Though there is pushback on social media, and clearly, in the case of social media, it is also here the ruling party is more directly implicated because they have a very active troll army and IT cell, which heightens, amplifies, exaggerates all this kind of polarization. So we have to step back and see where this is taking us. And I think when the most influential person in the world, the American president, and reputable sections of international public opinion, referring to our prime minister as a religious strongman, who's kind of equivalent to the religious strongman General Munir on the other side, that should give us pause and should act as a wake-up call.
Now, and this is my final question, since a lot of this regression has happened over the last decade, since Mr. Modi came to power, would I be right in saying that a large part of the responsibility for correcting the situation lies with the government and lies with Mr. Modi?
Yes, but equally, I would agree, but equally large part lies with the people of India because they have voted him to power 3 times in a row. And now they should see clearly that what kind of country Mr. Modi and the BJP are making us. Clearly even our economy is stalled, but that I'd leave to economic experts to talk about in greater detail. So, as I said, Karan, earlier on, my column, my anxiety, indeed my anguish, is addressed as much to the people of India, to my fellow citizens, as to those who rule us. Because, in my view, it's very unlikely that Mr. Modi or his ministers or his IT cell will recognize where this poisonous, polarizing hatred is taking us.
And the last point is this: if we don't start to correct the regression, the world will be increasingly justified in hyphenating India and Pakistan and looking upon them as equivalent sort of societies. The fault is ours. We need to correct it ourselves first.
I very much hope we don't come to being more systematically, more regularly, more commonly being hyphenated with Pakistan because we embarked on a very different kind of journey. As I said, our journey was characterized by democracy, pluralism, and intellectual open-mindedness. It led to substantial political, social, economic progress, including gender. It was not an accident that even it was symbolic. We had 2 female officers in uniform, which Pakistan can never have. In the remoted dream, of course, they can't have a Hindu officer, male or female, but they can. So we have, by staying steadfast by building a nation on these values of democracy, pluralism, gender equality, and intellectual open-mindedness, we made substantial progress. And were we to abandon them, even if we were not to abandon them fully, but if you to start abandoning them, that would be start a process of decline that would hurt us and would be really, really sad and tragic for someone who's Indian.
Ram Guha, thank you very much for coming to this interview and explaining your thoughts and concerns so fully, so comprehensively. Take care. Stay safe.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.